Hello and welcome to the Michael Mama Show, Ancient Secrets Revealed, coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of Western North Carolina. Today we're going to talk about how to build an enlightened city. I've talked, that's the purpose of Mount Soma, and that according to the Vedic literature, there is just such a thing as an enlightened city, and it has a very powerful influence that can transform the entire nation. And I talked about it, the first time I heard about this possibility and that it was in the Vedic literature was probably 1981, had to have been 81. And there's just some guy in the ashram. I was in the ashram, the monastery at that time. And he was saying that is in the Vedic literature. He talked about it a little bit. And I thought to myself, gee, we need to build it. Let's build it. Why doesn't anybody build it? Through the years, I've come, and particularly over the past 20 some years since I bought the property for Mount Soma, I've learned, why. And we'll get into that, I think, why nobody's actually done it, why one doesn't actually exist. I mean, I'm sure in the past, could even, perhaps Angkor Wat was that at one time. It's not now, obviously. It's not even in that operation in that sense. But at any rate, it doesn't exist on the planet today. There's not an operational enlightened city. But the potential is enormous. I talk about cleaning the fishbowl and how the global consciousness is really, it's polluted. I mean, look at the behavior of people. Just watch the news. Oh my God, and all that can be fixed, but it's a technology. And people don't believe it. If you talk about it, it's too foreign to the mentality that is popular. It's a small world. And if things don't fit within the domain of that belief system of the small world, then it's just rejected as false. So small worlds, they preclude huge leaps for humanity. And so it's the obstacle. That's the major obstacle to the whole thing. Is it just incredible to people that anything like that could happen? And it's a little bit like if people didn't understand about brushing teeth and tartar buildup and how it destroys the teeth and the gums and all that, and then you went in there and started telling them, oh, you got to brush your teeth, they might think you're crazy. It's just hygiene. It's dental hygiene. And so what we're talking about here really is cosmic hygiene, and it's just too foreign to how people think, But so anyway, when it comes then to building an enlightened city, really we could say there are two aspects. It's like we have a left and a right brain. There's the logic, and there's also the feeling and the heart. And when those two things are fully integrated, that's when we become powerful. If it's just pure intellect, it doesn't really get you anywhere, because when it's purely objective. There's the subjective component, the feeling component, the aspect that gives life meaning. You can look at a human being like they're a bunch of electrons, protons, and neutrons, and cells and organs and that, but it's sterile. It doesn't mean anything unless it is integrated with the soul, the heart, the being, the individual. That's what we think of when we think of a person. We don't think of the electrons, protons, neutrons, cells, and organs. And it's the same. It's the same when it comes to spirituality. But really, that's a big reason why people don't. I think a big reason people, embrace spirituality is because they don't want to have to. And I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying there's a tendency there. People don't want to have to think anymore. They want to feel. They want to, go to the temple or go to church and just their heart swells in love for God and it's all wonderful. And that's great. But it's just half, it's just part of the equation. And when it comes to building an enlightened city, then it's not about, getting a hodgepodge of spiritual accoutrements and throwing them together however you feel so inclined and playing a little Vedic music or doing some chants and, okay, great, we got an enlightened city. No, it's a technology. There's a technology to keeping the physical body healthy. There's a technology to keeping the individuality on all levels of existence healthy. And it's a technology, it's a science, there's an objective component to it. It has to be built properly. There's a principle, and I remember when I first heard about this, it kind of, I don't know, put me off. I wasn't comfortable with it, but I understand it now. And that principle is the idea of keeping the secret. To me, it's always like just all cards face up on the table, and let's just share and talk and commune and make things happen. But the problem is, like, just take, for example, the case of enlightened city and that phrase. Well, people hear that phrase and they may say, oh, yeah, great. Okay, well, we're going to build an enlightened city too. And we're going to get a bunch of statues and put them up and call it a temple, call it an enlightened city. And the hearts will swell and all the music, and it'll be beautiful. Maybe we can get some peacocks and have them roam around. But, where's the technology? Where's the objective component? Where's the scientific component? It requires both, you see. And so in the Vedic tradition, there's an idea of keeping things secret, not because you don't want people to know it, but you don't want the knowledge to get dissipated and compromised. And then words like enlightened city lose their meaning. Okay. So those are the kind of things that we're up against. I don't know. There's the analogy of the individual, and there's a physiology, but there's also the individually. Also, another analogy could be like with music. With music, there's such freedom. There's limitless numbers of songs, and there's creativity, and when you sing these songs, the heart soars, and it's all beautiful. But also, there's a if you will, an objective component to it. There's the structure of the music. Some chords resonate, some notes resonate, others are dissonant. And there's a whole artistry to how to make all of that work, but nevertheless, there is a structure there, and it needs to be honored. And with the case of a technology of an enlightened city, it goes all the way to the depth of existence. It's not just surface, but it's maintaining that integrity. I've often compared it to a cell phone, It has to be built properly or it doesn't work. You can't just take a bunch of transistors and things like that and throw them all in a pile and say, okay, great, I have a cell phone. But it might inspire the heart. Oh, look, isn't that cool? Look at that printed circuit board, how pretty it is. But so much gets compromised that way, So that's what we're up against. That's why, CRS, we call it the Center of Rational Spirituality. It's the integration of the heart and the mind to create a wholeness. And now, what I would say, so even though we're not supposed to share the details of the design because we don't want to compromise, that's just a Vedic principle. I found it off-putting when I first heard it, but I understand it now. But to share some of the details, a lot of granite is used. And you know why they use granite? Granite, any kind of negativity in the environment, you see positive attracts negative, right? It's a different force. There's the force of oneness and wholeness and divinity. And then there's the global consciousness, which is, Rakshasa consciousness. There's a negativity come up. And so it tends to collide, purification. The dust doesn't like house cleaning because it disturbs the dust, And so there's that dynamic that needs to be dealt with. And I'll tell you, when I started building Mount Soma, I really had no idea of the nature of the obstacles. And they say that Rakshasa value in Kali Yuga, which is this age, manifests through people. It's in people. And to just see it displayed is really astounding. They're good people, and they believe themselves to be good people. But nevertheless, that component wells up for whatever reason. Vedic principles, for just one example, cease to be considered Vedic principles, and they can be called old-fashioned. You know, that's just one example, but it goes on and on and on and on and on. You know, and so it's been my job to try to maintain that integrity. Now, because the negativity is going to happen there, that's why a lot of granite is used, because it dissipates it and keeps the whole value within the structure of the enlightened city pure. But the other interesting thing, the way it's structured, and there's a, how would we say it? There's an enlightened city, and within the enlightened city, there's like a generator, and it's huge. It's the size of several football fields. And but it has walls, and the walls cascade. So there's tall walls in the periphery, and then the lower walls and lower walls. And when you kind of picture it in 3D, it's almost like a big satellite dish or something. And in a way, you could say that's what it is. It's but it's not a receiver that resonates with a radio transmission from however far away, 50 miles, 100 miles, whatever. But it's something that resonates with the underlying sound, the underlying vibration, if you will, that upholds, sustains, births, and maintains the whole universe. And so you have this resonance going, and everything that's done within the enlightened city is to resonate with that. And it's a technology, just like the cell phone. The cell phone resonates with the radio waves, with the cell tower waves, you know, and it's like that. But it's to look at the design, it's remarkable. And there's the subjective component and the objective component. The objective component mean the vastu value, the actual structure of the thing. And there's also the heart of it that it touches, and in whatever chants or whatever sounds, whatever vibrations. And now here's the thing too, when we talk about chants, oftentimes what we think of is, oh yeah, well, it's the name of God, and they're chanting the name of God. And there's certainly truth to that. But in a way, now hear me, in a way, it's better to have those sounds of the Vedic chants not be viewed as words with meaning, but almost as meaningless sounds. Now, why? Because the sound is a vibration. And that vibration resonates with the very objective reality, if you will, of the structure of existence. Who was a Brigu, wasn't it? It was called the butcher of the Veda. Why? Because he took these sounds and he kind of like the cosmic pie that is, take a slice through it and it becomes a story. And then that's called the Veda. But really it's a small part of the Veda. You could take a slice through it another way and come up with something very different. I've talked about that in the past. Is it, Lord Shiva's drum, or is it Lord Krishna's flute? It's if that makes sense to you, if you heard those podcasts. But but the point is that the sounds themselves, when viewed as if meaningless, then it becomes more of an acknowledgement of the resonant value with respect to the objective science of the whole dynamic. And so now we've got that resonating within this structure, enlivened by and enlivening and picking up and resonating with that value that supports all of existence. And it radiates out that value and purifies out the environment. So there's a technology to it. It's a science. but it can also be viewed as a subjective reality. God isn't just a objective mechanic. It's not a meaningless term, but nevertheless, there is that component. So it's two sides of the same coin, you see? And what has happened in the world today largely, and this seems to be across the board in, I think, all religions, is that there tends to be an overwhelming, disproportionate preference of one, this subjective heart feeling, over the other, this scientific objective reality, to the point where it becomes compromised. Because once the heart takes off, it's like a kite with no tail, and it just spins in all sorts of directions. And oh yeah, well, it's all God and it's all religion and it's all beautiful, and then you're often running into left-handed tantra as opposed to right-handed tantra. Tantra is like engineering. Right-handed tantra is engineering that is consistent with the laws of nature, with Mother Nature, with the nature of existence. Left-handed tantra takes those same principles, but spins them and twists them and compromises them. And the results can be dramatic. You can tear people's third eyes open, tear open their chakras, and all of a sudden all this light is pouring in and they think they see the light. Just one example. And by the way, that's one reason why at Mount Soma, I'm very strict. If people come along and want to be on the staff and they're involved in left-handed tantra, they're jettisoned out. No way. We're not doing it. And left-handed tantra is more prevalent, not just in the Vedic or the Hindu community, but in all religions than one might think. And we must have nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with an enlightened city, for sure. But of course, then what that breeds negativity. Well, why can't you let us, be here and do this thing or that thing? No. It's not fanaticism, it's science. I think that's about it. Anything else, Scotty?
No, I mean,
a couple of nice quotes I saw this week. I can post it in the blog here. People do not decide to become extraordinary. They decide to accomplish extraordinary things. I know my teacher once said something in effect, think of something great and go out and do it. And when I heard about it in Enlightened City, I mean, geez, I was just a kid at the time. I was like, and it stuck with me through all these decades, We got to do it. And that's what we're in the process of doing. And if I've thought about writing a book about the obstacles and everything, but nobody would believe it. It's just so incredible. It really makes you realize these principles are real. They are valid, And then I like the Arthur Ashe quote, the tennis player, success is a journey, not a destination. Well, there's some truth to that, a lot of truth to that, but I could argue the destination, the goal is to get the Enlightened City completed, but nevertheless, success is a result of the process of the journey. So in that sense, success is a journey. And as long as you're adhering to the journey, if the project is completed or not, you're being successful. So there's a beauty to that quote. The doing is often more important than the outcome. That's very interesting, because without the doing, there is no desired outcome.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Scotty.
No, I was thinking of what you were talking about earlier about all the amazing people that you have at Mount Soma that are helping this work. Because you can't do it alone. And what you were talking about all these people and how they have to, work and sacrifice and do all these things in order to make it work. And,
I've oftentimes you know, you want to name the people because they're such wonderful people and they've been so dedicated through the years, through thick and thin, through all the obstacles. They just keep going, and we keep striving. And but I hesitate to do it. You know why? Because no matter how extensive a list I made, I'm sure I would leave some people out.
Yeah.
But they all know who they are.
Yeah.
You know. And it's a good point, Scotty. I mean, we have and it's these people, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk again.